This is why you must see everything as your fault, and this needs to be freeing. You need to be excited when you see something and be like, yeah, I can see how I can take responsibility for this, even if it's not actually your fault. This is just a little tweak of the mind here to get you looking at things optimistically. This isn't a pessimistic message. This isn't like, God, everything's your fault and you suck. That's not what this is. This is actually optimism. Okay, an optimistic message. It's telling you that, hey, you got more power than you think. What are you going to be so weak that you're going to let everyone around you keep you down? What kind of person is that? You're never going to have any growth. But take the responsibility. Okay, take ownership of those things. Then there's so many things in your life that, oh, okay, now I can see a lot of possibility. Alright, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today's topic is, it's your fault, and you should be damn excited about that. Alright, so what does this mean? It's your fault. Well, this is going to be a topic about how everything that happens around you is your fault or can be interpreted that way. Now, this is not going to be a talk on self-defacing or woe is me or damn man, I can never get it anywhere, I suck. Is none of that stuff, okay? This is about taking responsibility for as much stuff as you possibly can in your life in order to change it. Let me give you a little bit of a broader description of what I mean. So, when you have a lack of ownership, is what I'm calling this, a lack of ownership in what's going on with you, you're fundamentally giving away your agency over the situation. Yes, of course, there are things in your life that happen and things that other people do and all of that had nothing to do with you. But when you take the mentality that, okay, everything is my fault in that I have control over the outcome, that is a damn powerful position to take. A lot of people take it as like, oh, these people are being mean to me, or oh, the world is going this way and that's why I don't have any money, or that's why I don't have any opportunity, or blah blah blah. So there may be a correctness in assessing things that way, but the more things that you can take responsibility for, the more power and, like I said, agency you have over your life. The less actually that you are helpless. And helpless is a very bad position to be in. Alright? So remember, like, a lot of great thinkers over the years have attested to the fact that even if you are in the worst position possible, you're like surrounded by enemies, you may be imprisoned, you may be lying sick in a hospital or something, you still have control of your own thoughts, at the very least, and it starts there. Remember, a lot of the things that happen around you, or rather, a lot of the things that you personally do, the way that you take things, the lens at which you look upon life, have to do with your mentality. And mentality is everything, because this is a question of motivation. You motivate yourself to do anything, if you shrink a problem down to where you're now approaching it with curiosity and excitement and with an architectural type mind about how you can innovate your way out of a situation. I believe it's Jeff Bezos who says, like, hey, we might have some problems, but that's okay. We're going to innovate our way out of it. That means being creative and finding a path out. Every time, I believe, now don't quote me on this one, but I do believe that in some dialects or some certain forms of Chinese language, they say that they use the same word for crisis as they do opportunity. Alright, so anybody can drop a comment down at the bottom on whichever language or dialect that is. But it's a nice thought, either which way. Crisis and opportunity, same word. Because when you see something is going to shit, when you see something going wrong, if you look at it as, hey, this is an opportunity for me to express my creativity, to exercise that that part of me that is unique, that is going to look at the situation in a unique way. That right there is exactly why humans are the most dominant species. People think it's because we're so smart, and there is a correctness in saying that, but it's different to be smart and but there's a difference between being smart and being like able to be adaptable because of that smartness. Adapting is using that creativity. That's what they said. I mean, who was it? That said, it's not the strongest or the fastest or even the smartest that survive. It is the most adaptable. Charles Darwin. Alright? It's the most adaptable. The one that is able to take the parts of them that fit the situation the best and lead with those parts. It's not even about being inauthentic, the adaptability. It's taking the parts of you that best fit this situation and just letting those shine. Alright, now why is everything your fault? Because when everything is your fault, then this is actually not going to bind you and jail you into like, oh damn, the situation sucks and now everything's my fault. No, actually, it's the quite opposite. It's freeing. When everything, if you take the approach, now remember, this isn't self-defacing. You're not like, shitting on yourself or any of those things. This isn't about those kinds of things. This is about saying, okay, what kind of responsibility can I take? Because everything in your life, at the end of the day, that is or isn't dealt with is your responsibility. It is your responsibility how you react to things. Okay, and the better and better that you get at reacting to things in a constructive and creative and adaptive way, well, the better you're just going to get at it in general. Like, the more you practice something, the better it gets. And then, when you reframe your mind to see those crappy things, those crises, or however that word goes, as opportunities, instead of, damn, this sucks. Yeah, it's going to suck, but that's okay. That's when you go, oh, hold on one second. What's the opportunity here? Because the people that come up with that creativity are usually the ones that find grand success in their life, and then other people are like, hey, they got out of it. We want them on our team because we're facing all of these problems constantly, and we want somebody here that not only can they solve them, but that excites them. They're like, you got a problem? Great, I'm coming in here. Don't you love it when you watch a movie or something and some badass dude or girl comes in and they're like, you know what I do? You call me and I come and make problems go away. That's like a chilling thought, man. It's like you meet somebody like that, you're like, okay, we're dealing with a professional here. But that can be you. It must be you, actually, in your own life. Taking responsibility. There is what did I say? A lack of ownership about things that happen around you. And part of this topic came from this book I'm reading right here called Upstream by Dan Heath. I have several books by this man. He usually writes with his brother Chip. Well, let's see what we got here. So, Switch, I've done some talks on that book, is by them. So is Made to Stick, and so is The Power of Moments here. That might be all I have right here. They got like one more that I've read that I don't think I have in this particular stack. And then Dan Heath wrote this, Upstream. Upstream is a book about solving problems before they happen, basically. Okay? And what does that take? It takes that experience, like I was talking about. The more problems you deal with, the more experience that you have, and also you build your optimism, you build your courage that, hey, you know something? This isn't that big of a problem. The worst thing you can do is freak out. You don't want to do that, because then you start breaking things. You start damaging relationships. You start, like, eroding your own reputation if you're known as one of those people who, oh damn, every time something happens, man, there goes this dude, he's freaking the hell out again. You don't want to be that dude, all right? You want to be the person who is like, okay, they're proactive first, and even if you're proactive, there's still going to be some stuff go wrong, and then you're like, okay, we're going to learn about this. This book, Upstream, is about that. And he talks in the book about a lack of ownership. That's one of the reasons why finding problems before they happen is difficult for many people, and not just people, but companies and organizations and communities. It's because of the lack of ownership is one of the issues. It's because nobody wants to take responsibility. It takes a tough ass person to take responsibility for, you know, their own actions, but it takes an even tougher person to take responsibility of things that really weren't theirs to begin with. But they're like, you know what, no, we're going to take responsibility of this. I'm sick of looking at the problem, or whatever the case is, and we're going to start making some changes. Let's do some R&D. Let's gather some research and some data. Test some things. Experiment. Those sorts of things. That's all an abundance mindset. And this whole channel, basically, this is kind of a self-help channel. Yeah, it's a broadening of knowledge and sharing of knowledge, but this is all also about optimism. Alright? And being a little bit better every single day, practicing optimism. So there are a lot of people, if you look in life, that had some terrible shit happen to them. One of the best examples of that, let's take Nelson Mandela. Dude was imprisoned for years and years and years, falsely. It wasn't even him that did it. But you know what he did? In a way, he took ownership of the situation that was going on. He said, you know something, even though this is wrong and I'm here, he's like, what is the positive that I can get out of this? And he started training his mind for that optimism, for finding the good that happened in it. And then you can read like his story, if you haven't heard it before, about how that helped him in his situation. He took the anger and the frustration and the grudges that he held, and he kind of like softened those and even eliminated a lot of it by having an attitude of optimism and taking ownership. Think about that. When's the last time you were in prison for years and years and years, accidentally or falsely, and had the guts to go, oh, you know something? We're not going to give away our agency and just be bitter for the rest of our life. If anybody had the I don't know, the excuse to be bitter, it was this man, and he didn't. You know, Helen Keller was another one of those people who was blind and deaf and like didn't have really that great of a, you know, in the way we would rank it, great of a life, not being able to be normal like regular people. And she said that, yeah, for a while she was bitter and she was angry and all of these things, but eventually, practically speaking, she took ownership of that and leaned into optimism in order to have a better life, in order to innovate her way out of what was going on. And she became actually quite the writer, from what I understand. A person who was blind and deaf, right? And had other issues too. It's not just the issues that people talk about, but some issues, you know how that works, they tumble and they create other issues you can't even see. Which is kind of what Upstream is about. Upstream is like, hey, we're going to stop issues before they even happen. Because you can't see them happening almost until they happen, and by then it's too late. You know, those kinds of things, you know, that it's like, hey, by the time you see it, it's too late. I forgot who it was that said, but they said something along the lines of the shackles of habits, bad habits, right, are too weak for you to feel them until they become too strong for you to break them. So by the time you find out you have a problem, it's pretty much too late. It takes a lot more damn power and energy and mental fortitude to break through them once you can feel them. This book here, Upstream, is about like, okay, let's for as many things as possible, let's not let them get to that point. And one of the ways that we can do that is by taking ownership of the things that are going on around us now. They're like, okay, you know what? We don't want to sit here and wallow and point fingers and blame. Those are all the kinds of things that keep you in the circle, keep you in the cycle, in that little rat race. Okay, what we want to do is innovate our way out of what's going on and take ownership of it. Remember, it's a freeing thing. Like, why did this happen to me? What could I have done to either prevent it, or at the very least, what can I learn from this? Right? Yeah. What can I learn from this so that next time we can get upstream before whatever that crap that's flowing downhill and it's gonna come down and hit us later on, we can stop it up there. All right. So this is why you must see everything as your fault, and this needs to be freeing. You need to be excited when you see something and be like, yeah, I can see how I can take responsibility for this, even if it's not actually your fault. This is just a little tweak of the mind here to get you looking at things optimistically. This isn't a pessimistic message. This isn't like, God, everything's your fault and you suck. That's not what this is. This is actually optimism. Okay, an optimistic message. It's telling you that, hey, you got more power than you think. What, are you going to be so weak that you're going to let everyone around you keep you down? What kind of person is that? You're never going to have any growth. But take the responsibility. Okay, take ownership of those things. Then there's so many things in your life that, oh, okay, now I can see a lot of possibility. All right, that optimism. So, another thing that we probably should discuss here has to do with this book, this book, Upstream. I've got optimism on my mind so much that I just can't stop saying it. Let's sit here and talk about optimism a little more. Just like any muscle in your body, your brain is kind of a muscle, and if you program it and you exercise it with optimism, it becomes easier to see that, to see possibility. I did another video on here a few weeks ago about one of the best natural treatments for depression that I believe. And I'm going to say it again, obviously I'm not a doctor or any of that stuff, but if you haven't tried optimism, that is a good one. One of the best, I think, natural cures, or rather treatments, could be a cure for some of you, but treatments of depression is looking for opportunity. Think about it this way. There are, for a lot of people, okay, there are times when they're depressed and stuff sucks and woe is me, and look, that happens. Okay? This is not me turning my nose up to anyone or any of that stuff. It happens. But if you think about it, if you're stuck in a cycle of believing, of like getting consumed by that depression, then you fundamentally believe that there is no more opportunity for you. Think about some things that can make you sad. Some things that maybe in the past made you sad and you got over it and you're like, man, you know, that thing doesn't seem so bad anymore. Here's a good one. Here's a sore spot for a lot of people. Maybe you had a bad breakup. Lots of people have that issue, sometimes multiple times in a life. Okay? So what happens? You have a bad breakup. Some guy or girl or whatever it was you loved so much. It could even have been with a friend, but you see what I'm saying. And then it was over. And then, for a lot of people, how did you feel? You felt like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't believe this. I love this person so much, but there's nobody else out there like them, and on and on and on and on, right? And then this goes from that pain happening for a few days, and then it's a few weeks, and then maybe a few months, and then for some of us, the next thing you know, it's years later, and you still feel that ache from what happened. And if it still brings you down as much as it, too much, if you're thinking about it and you're like, oh my god, that still hurts so much, and it just brings it all back, fundamentally, you have a belief that there is no more opportunity out there. With this specific situation, you have lost your optimism. Fundamentally, you believe that you don't have any more opportunity out there. Why? Because if you did have a bunch of other opportunity, if you really believed that and were leaning into that sort of optimism instead of the pessimism of I lost X, Y, and Z, then you wouldn't be really that sad. Yeah, you're gonna be sad the first day or two, or maybe even week or two, or whatever. That's natural. But when it starts affecting your life at large, when it's all you can think about morning, noon, and night, and you're dreaming about that shit, and it's never letting go. If you've ever said these words to somebody, you're like, dude, this thing, it just got me, and it just won't let go. It won't stop. If you've ever said those things, fundamentally, you do not believe you have other opportunity. And you do. Okay, don't get it backwards, you do. The only reason that you wouldn't is if you're telling yourself that you don't, and then, hey, your wish is the universe's command. It's gonna give you what it is you focus on the most. Focus on the optimism. Just try it for a day or two. You look around at things and try to find the good in every situation. It's a tough ass exercise. But, just like I said with optimism, the more you train this in your brain, the easier it actually becomes over time. Great. Because when you're looking for optimism, and you're looking for the positive things in every situation that you can, that becomes easier. You become more attractive too. A person who is having a good attitude about stuff is more attractive than somebody who is walking around with their, head slumped and their eyes down, and they're just like, oh, of course she doesn't like me, nobody likes me, or of course I didn't make the team, nobody likes me, or of course, like, I didn't get that job or the promotion, nobody likes me. No, nobody does like you. You can't be like that, okay? It isn't, for a lot of people, it isn't even a choice. This is biologically a process, a reaction that people have to this kind of person. You're walking around like that all the time. It's one thing if you do it for a day and something really tragic happened to you, and like, man, I'm just not feeling it today, or something like that. Look, that's different. But if you're that person, you probably know people like this. If it's not you, you're like, oh, but I know somebody like that who every little thing, it sucks, and they gotta talk about all this crap, and they're never happy, they never smile, they never look for the positivity in a situation. I know this is about taking ownership of things, and we're gonna get back to that. It's all connected, but you know those kinds of people. You know why? Because they're not taking ownership. A person who takes ownership will be inspired. They'll be like, you know something? It's actually not that damn bad, everything being my fault. That's great. You know why? Because that means I can do something about it. You don't want to be in a situation that you actually cannot do something about. But that happens fewer times than people actually think, especially when it comes to mentality. Mentality is almost always, you can change that for your better. Right? But those people, you know who they are if you've seen them before. Hopefully you're not one of these people. If it is, if you are, time to make some changes, because it's going to give you what you want. But those people who do that biologically, I believe that a lot of humans, they don't like that, because that it represents death and decay. It doesn't seem like it does, but like that's kind of what it does. It's like, if this person, if everything sucks for them, they got a huge pessimistic attitude about everything, nobody likes them. Is this the kind of person we want on our team, or we want to reproduce with? Who nobody likes, who might have a lot of enemies even, who is weak? No, dude, that is not the kind Like, biologically speaking, we don't want people around us that are like that, because you know what's going to happen? They're going to bring us down. And we're going to have to either carry them, all right? Or, yeah, no, basically that's it. We're going to have to carry them or just, like, get rid of them. And we don't want to have to make that decision. Better just not even get associated with that person at all. So biologically speaking, a person who is unable to take ownership of situations, at least mentally, that's not a good match in almost any way. Now, there are, obviously, yes, I understand there is a use of pessimism in biology. There's a great use for it. For example, you don't want to see people, I don't know, juggling war axes or something, like, or swords or something. You ever see those people who juggle things like torches and swords and, I don't know, some silly things like running chainsaws or whatever it is? Okay, yeah, you want to have a pessimistic attitude about that. You're like, okay, maybe you're trained to do that, but then they hand you all of that stuff and you're probably not going to want to do it. You shouldn't want to do that. Yeah, you're going to want the pessimism for that. You don't want to be throwing swords into the air and then ending up in intensive care with it stuck out of your forehead or something because you didn't have enough pessimism to avoid that situation. All right? So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that, or I'm not talking about people who assess situations, especially like with investing or with like making new friends, and they're just a little bit standoffish and they're like, I don't know about this. I need more information, okay? I'm not sure I trust this or whatever. That's natural. That is evolutionarily stable, because especially back in the day, this isn't so much the case anymore, but because, people can rip you off and stuff these days, and that sucks. But back in the day, getting ripped off was called being killed. Like, a neighboring tribe would kill you if you trusted them, and it was a situation where you shouldn't, because resources were that damn scarce. Like, every single other human you saw that was in another tribe was basically your enemy, because they're competing over the same stuff you were. Land, food, shelter, safety even. Maybe your tribe had this great cave or something which would shelter you from weather and from animals and was easily defensible, so you can keep other tribes away. And they wanted that. They'll come and kill you for it, because it's like, well, either I'm going to survive or you are. That's how the world used to be. Nowadays, for the most part, if somebody tricks you, they just take some money from you. Well, damn, okay? And even nowadays, a lot of times, if you get tricked, like online or something, your bank will literally refund the money to you. If you're like, hey, there was this scam, or like there's a charge on my card that is unauthorized or something, almost all banks will just be like, okay, whatever, we'll take care of it. As long as you document it and you're not doing that like constantly. You can't be doing that multiple times a year, but there's not as much, you see what I mean, as risk as there were back in those days where you were hunting all of these, the mammoths and stuff that could just plow through your tribe and stampede and kill a bunch of you. So the pessimism is still there and it's useful, but not hyper pessimism. Not the, oh, everybody hates me kind of thing. You guys know what I'm talking about. So remember, don't have that lack of ownership. Everything is your fault. And this is inspiring. That might be a little bit of a hot button sentence there for me to say. But it's inspiring because you're like, great, the more things that are actually my fault, great, because I can do something about them. You have Bob or James or Susie or Catherine or whoever around, and it's their fault stuff is happening to you. You can't change what someone else is going to do. Even you can threaten them, you can bargain with them, you can become their best friend. You still can't fundamentally change what they do. All right? In almost all cases, you can't. So when it's actually your fault, that's inspiring, because you're like, great, I have 100% control over what I do, and we're going to innovate our way out of this stuff. And even better, once we do it, that gives us another notch in our belt. We're like, this is getting better at this. This is getting easier and easier. Now you're gonna start looking for things that are wrong. But like, give me another one, man. I'm getting good at these, because the reward for taking responsibility and innovating your way out of things it's almost incalculable or uncalculable. I'm not sure which one of those is the negative version. It's almost, you cannot even calculate it, because you never know. Like butterfly effect and stuff. You never know how much positivity and good it's gonna lead you to. Alright? So, remember, this talk, it's been about all of that stuff. All of the lack of ownership. Everything is your fault, and that should be inspiring. Alright? So, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Do all of this stuff. I really appreciate it. Comment below if you got some situation you'd like to share. Put it out to the universe. Be like, hey, yeah, this thing's been going on, but today I'm deciding to I'm gonna gather that responsibility into my own personal being. And you take that agency back, it makes everything a little bit easier, because you now have 100% control over it. Alright, so thank y'all so much for being here, and have a great day.